Hello, everybody. It's Philip Lee returning with another episode of Civil War Chat. And today is the 17th of August. It's a Tuesday, 2021. Click on the subscriber button down here in the lower right to subscribe to future episodes. And also click on the notification bell in the upper right to be notified when those episodes come out. Today, I want to talk about President Biden, Robert E. Lee, and Afghanistan. 2 years ago, Joe Biden opened his presidential campaign with a deceitful television ad concerning the clash between white nationalists that rallied in Charlottesville, Virginia, and their contra-protesters. Biden falsely claimed that President Trump remarked that there were, quote, fine people on both sides, close quote. To anyone who truly watched the videos of Trump's comment, it is obvious his remark referred to the contra-protesters and a third group of peaceful demonstrators who were there merely because they wanted to preserve Robert E. Lee's statue. They were not white supremacists, and it's obvious that that's what Trump meant when he referred to fine people on both sides. Even when challenged about the untruth of his accusation, President Biden has repeatedly refused to admit his error. And the reason probably was because it was politically convenient for Biden to defame General Lee's historical reputation and indirectly smear Lee's statue supporters as so-called, quote, white supremacists, close quote. It worked into the appeal that he wanted to make to Black voters. And also the academic elite and the media elite who have very low opinion of white Southerners and anything having to do with the Confederacy. Well, anyway, his strategy worked. 3 years later, Charlottesville's municipal government removed the Lee statue, as well as a Stonewall Jackson statue, both about 150 years old, about 100 years old. Shortly thereafter, it also removed statues of trailblazers Lewis and Clark and Midwestern pioneer George Rogers Clark. Moreover, Biden's implied disparagement of General Lee added fuel to activists who want to remove all Confederate statues and symbols, even those on the national battlefield parks. Earlier this year, even Washington and Lee University dropped the general's name from Lee Chapel and minimized his connection to the venerable Honor Code Pledge ceremony. Whereas a decade ago, Americans regarded Lee and Confederate symbols as expressions of regional pride. Political forces like those of the Biden-Harris administration have radically changed that perception. Consider the results of a 2017 survey conducted by the American Battlefield Trust, which is the nation's oldest battlefield preservation organization. This survey was taken less than 4 years ago in November of 2017. But that organization was then known as the Civil War Trust. And when it polled the subscribers to its magazine, a magazine titled Hallowed Ground. 4 points of the survey are significant. First, only 17% of the subscribers wanted Confederate monuments to be removed from public places, quote, if that's what the local community wants to do, close quote. The remaining 83%, over 4 out of 5, felt that the statue should remain. Second, 97%, almost unanimous, 97% replied that Confederate monuments should remain on the battlefields. Well, now the House of Representatives passed a bill that would call for the removal of all Confederate monuments and markers from all national battlefield parks. And here, 97%, less than 4 years ago, 97% of the subscribers to Hallowed Ground said they should all remain. Third, 91% said that Robert E. Lee was a man, quote, worthy of respect today, close quote. Whereas 9% said he should not be respected presently. Fourth, only 22% of the respondents, about 1 in 5 of the respondents to this survey, were from the former Confederate states. Whereas a combined 52%, over half, were evenly split between the Northeast and the Midwest, which is where most of the Union soldiers came from during the Civil War. Notwithstanding those results, the American Battlefield Trust has fallen under the same politically correct influence as the Biden-Harris administration. They increasingly disparage those who fought for the Confederacy. Yesterday, former CIA analyst and Afghan expert Matt Zeller castigated the Biden-Harris administration for inept handling of the U.S. troop withdrawal. According to Zeller, Biden's speech yesterday was a cover-up for the maladministration that led to the debacle. And it was a debacle. There were people hanging from the airplanes that took off. One of the airplanes had 640 people in it, and people hanging on the outside. You can see them dropping hundreds of feet from the airplane to the airport after the airplane took off. Just imagine how desperate they were to get away from the Taliban. Well, according to Zeller, Biden's speech yesterday was a cover-up for the maladministration that led to that debacle. Zeller even went so far as to say that Joe Biden's claim that the Biden-Harris administration had carefully planned the evacuation was a, quote, bold-faced lie, close quote. Specifically, Zeller said, quote, there was such a profound, bold-faced lie in that speech, meaning Biden's speech. The idea that we plan for every contingency, question mark, that's what he's saying is a bold-faced lie. I have been personally trying to tell this administration since it took office, and I have been trying to tell our government for years that this was coming. We sent them plan after plan on how to evacuate these people, but nobody listened. Now, Zeller voted for Biden. He was not a fan of Trump. He voted for Biden. While any accusation that an American president is lying to the public should be scrutinized, 4 points suggest that Zeller's claims are credible. First, Joe Biden repeatedly lied about Trump's, quote, fine people on both sides remarks concerning Charlottesville during the presidential campaign. He repeatedly lied about that, even when shown the truth. Second, Zeller made his remarks on MSNBC, which is normally nothing more than a propaganda shill for the Democrat Party. Third, the Biden-Harris administration has been missing in action during this entire debacle. Joe Biden was on vacation at Camp David. Harris, she's gone. She's traveling through Asia on a junket where she's treated royally and can avoid all of this controversy. That's her method. That's how she works. Although Press Secretary Jen Psaki returned from vacation, she dodged the hard questions by turning them over to what? A white male named Jake Sullivan. Oh, the hard questions don't go to the feminists. No, they go to the white males who are otherwise disparaged in every other way. The abrupt collapse was, therefore, unexpected. Fourth, notwithstanding that the Biden-Harris breakthroughs and notwithstanding the Biden-Harris breakthroughs in providing top government jobs to women, a call upon the military, no doubt composed of many so-called toxic males, to enforce order on the chaos that the Biden-Harris administration created. In contrast, Robert E. Lee took responsibility for his failures. After the defeat at Gettysburg, he never responded to newspaper criticisms of his performance at the battle or during the entire campaign. But after he got his army safely back to Virginia, he wrote President Jefferson Davis and a battle report, and he praised his soldiers, but he offered his personal resignation, which Davis declined. Lee's record of silence towards newspaper critics merits comment now that intersectional so-called minorities, meaning principally elite so-called racism experts and feminists, have focused nearly all of the attention toward Lee on his relationships with Blacks. Even though one of his father-in-law's slaves wrote a story, probably dictated it to somebody who then wrote the story, in a newspaper accusing Lee of having whipped him. Lee's modern intersectional critics erroneously suppose 150 years later that Lee's failure to respond to that newspaper article is proof of his guilt. But that is untrue, because as noted, his normal practice was to decline to respond to critical newspaper stories all the way through the Civil War. And prior to that, he was not much often discussed in the newspaper, but that was his normal practice. Okay, so I want to share something with the screen here. If you'd like to learn more about what happened after the Civil War and how the South continued to be a poor section of the country, I recommend U.S. Grant's Failed Presidency by me, Philip Lee. I probably should retitle it as U.S. Grant's Selfish Presidency, because it was all about creating wealth for himself. And even to the possible extent of being directly criminal, as one of his Treasury secretaries thought he was by being involved in a tax avoidance scheme for the distilled liquor industry to avoid or minimize their taxes on their excise taxes. So, but to get a copy of this book, you can get it at Barnes & Noble or Amazon or other fine bookstores for $22. But I'll sell you an autographed copy if you're here in the United States for $25, and I will cover the postage. But you got to email me, Phil, P-H-I-L _Lee, L-E-I-G-H @me.com. Okay. Yeah, I need to stop sharing the screen here. Okay, that's our show for today, and we'll be back later in the week with more. Thank you for watching.